Ort buzzed with noise, but Emily stood frozen near gate 17, her suitcase handle trembling in her hand. She had saved for this moment for 2 years. Every extra shift at the coffee shop, every skipped lunch, every used pair of shoes, just so she could afford the ticket to Los Angeles. She had one goal, not fame, not fortune, just a handshake and a few words with the man whose kindness had pulled her out of depression, Keanu Reeves. But now, as she stared at the departure board flashing in cruel red letters, Flight 286 to Los Angeles departed, her dream collapsed like a house of cards. Tears welled in her eyes. She had arrived 5 minutes too late. The woman at the counter had just shaken her head with a practiced apology, not knowing that this was more than a missed flight. It was a missed chance at something she had carried in her heart for years. "I'm sorry, miss," the attendant had said gently. "We called your name 3 times. Emily nodded silently and walked away. She sat on a cold metal bench near the window, hugging her backpack tightly. She wasn't sure if it was the jet lag, the heartbreak, or the sheer exhaustion that made her chest feel like it was folding in on itself. As people moved around her, boarding other flights and going about their lives, she whispered, "I just wanted to tell him thank you." Thousands of feet above, on the very flight she had missed, Keanu Reeves sat in first class with a book in his lap. He wasn't reading, though. His eyes wandered out the window, watching the clouds drift like thoughts he couldn't pin down. Beside him, his assistant Lisa whispered, "We got the message, she didn't make it." Keanu sighed. "She tried," Lisa added softly. "Maybe that means more than we think." Keanu nodded slowly. He had read the letter Emily sent to his charity 3 months ago. A quiet story from a quiet soul. She had been on the edge once, standing on the edge of a bridge on a rainy night soaked and hollow. Then she saw a video of Keanu stopping in the rain to help a stranger push a broken-down car. "It made me believe good still existed," she had written. "So I stepped back, I got help." She had ended the letter with, "If I ever meet you, I won't ask for a picture. I'll just say, thank you for the rain." Keanu had read that line again and again. Now that woman was down there somewhere, and he was up here, safe in the sky. And something about that didn't feel right. Emily sat quietly at a small cafe, near the baggage claim area, stirring a cup of tea she didn't really want. Her phone was nearly dead, but she watched the old text thread with her best friend. "You'll meet him." "I believe it," the last message read. But belief didn't buy new plane tickets. Belief didn't rewind time. A man in a navy blue uniform passed by dragging a mop and gave her a small nod. Even he could tell something had gone wrong. She forced herself to stand. She would get through this. Not everything in life went the way we planned. Sometimes dreams didn't come true. But you still had to walk, still had to breathe. She began heading toward the exit, trying to keep her head up. That's when a voice called behind her, "Miss Emily?" She turned. A young woman in a black suit approached, holding a tablet. Her badge read, "K Jet Aviation, VIP Services." "Yes?" Emily asked, startled. The woman smiled warmly. "I'm here on behalf of the Reeves Foundation. Mr. Reeves asked to speak with you." Emily blinked. Her mind struggled to process the words. What?" "He was made aware that you missed your flight. He's asked me to bring you to a private lounge. He wants to speak with you personally." Emily followed the woman through a maze of doors she never knew existed. They bypassed crowded terminals and passed into a quiet hallway lined with polished wood and soft lights. Soon they reached a door with frosted glass. The assistant knocked twice and opened it. Inside was a calm lounge with beige couches, soft jazz playing low, and a tall man standing near the window. He turned around. Emily stopped breathing. It was him, Keanu Reeves. His black shirt was slightly wrinkled, his posture calm but alert. He walked toward her slowly as if meeting an old friend. No cameras, no bodyguards. Just a man with gentle eyes. "Emily?" he asked. She nodded, her throat dry. "Yes." Keanu offered a small smile. "You missed your flight." Her heart raced. "I'm so sorry. I got stuck in traffic. I tried so hard to make it." He raised a hand gently. Don't apologize, you came this far, that matters. She couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears escaped her eyes, sliding down her cheeks. I just wanted to say, thank you. For everything. He stepped forward and, to her shock, he opened his arms. Come here, he said softly. She hugged him. A real human hug. Not for a selfie, not for show, but because two people understood something unspoken. When they pulled back, Keanu looked her in the eyes and said, I read your letter. It meant more to me than you know. Emily wiped her tears and laughed through them. You're even kinder in person, he chuckled. Some days I try. Then he said something she didn't expect. How about we fly together? I have a jet leaving soon, and I think we have more to talk about than just that letter. Emily stared at him. But I can't afford another ticket. He smiled again, his voice quieter now. Emily, I own the airline. And just like that, everything she believed about herself began to shift, because kindness wasn't just in the movies. Sometimes, it was sitting right in front of you, offering you another flight and a new chance at life. The jet, the journal, and the journey ahead. Emily sat in the plush leather seat of the private jet, staring out the window as the engines roared to life. She couldn't believe any of it. This wasn't just some fantasy. It was happening. She was flying with Keanu Reeves, not behind him in economy, not watching him from a distance, but sitting across from him, close enough to see the kindness in his eyes and the way he rested, his hand on his knee when deep in thought. Keanu poured them both some herbal tea and placed a small blanket over Emily's lap. You looked a little cold, he said gently. She blinked. Thank you. I still feel like this isn't real. He smiled. Most of my life doesn't feel real either, but here we are. The jet climbed higher into the sky, leaving the airport and the missed flight behind. Emily felt like she was leaving her old life too, the one where she was invisible, where dreams stayed dreams. Now she was in a quiet room in the sky, with a man the world admired, and he was treating her like she mattered. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, Keanu leaned forward slightly. Can I ask you something personal? She nodded, heart pounding. Of course. In your letter, he began, his voice soft. You said you stepped back from the edge because of a video you saw of me. What made that moment so powerful for you? Emily looked down at her hands, thinking carefully. It wasn't just the video, it was what it represented. You didn't have to help that person. No one was watching. It was raining. Most people would have kept walking. But you didn't. Her voice shook as she continued. At that time, I felt like the world didn't see people like me. No one cared if I was struggling or not. But watching you stop, get soaked in the rain just to help, it reminded me that there are still people who do the right thing even when no one's looking. Keanu nodded slowly. That's powerful. Thank you for telling me. I never thought that moment would save someone, he added, eyes distant. But maybe we never know the full weight of our choices. Emily nodded. It saved me. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a small worn leather journal. This is my journey. I've written in it every day since that night. I write what I'm grateful for, even if it's just tea or sunlight or the smell of pancakes. She handed it to him. I want you to have it. Keanu took the journal carefully like it was made of glass. He turned a few pages, reading her thoughts, her gratitude, her healing. His eyes grew glassy. This, he said, voice low, is the most honest thing I've read in years. He looked up at her. Thank you, Emily. Not just for surviving, but for sharing it with me. The jet leveled out and the flight attendant quietly placed a tray of snacks between them. Emily picked at a small cookie while watching Keanu turn another page in her journal. For a moment, she was no longer the invisible girl in a crowd. She was someone with a voice, a story, and now, a seat at the table. After reading a few more pages, Keanu placed the journal gently on the table. You're a writer, he said simply. She shook her head. No, not really. Yes, he replied more firmly. You are. Anyone who writes truthfully like this, that's a gift. Don't downplay it. His words hit her like a wave. What if no one reads it? She asked quietly. He leaned back. Then you write anyway. Not for them. For you. And one day, the right person will read it. Like I just did. Emily felt something shift in her chest, like a locked door slowly opening. After a few hours, in the air, the sun began to set outside the windows. The sky turned golden orange, and shadows stretched gently across the floor of the jet. Emily and Keanu sat side by side sipping tea, talking about books, movies, and little moments in life that had shaped them. Keanu told her about a boy he met once at a cancer ward, how the boy had smiled even on his hardest day. He taught me more about strength than any Hollywood role ever could, Keanu said. Emily told him about her mother, how she had worked 2 jobs and still found time to sing lullabies at night. She didn't have much, but she gave me everything, she whispered. Then Keanu grew quiet. You know, he said, most people think fame is the reward, the recognition, the applause, but sometimes the real reward is moments like this, where no one's watching, where we just get to be human. Emily looked at him and smiled. That's all I ever wanted. They watched the sky change together in silence. The jet finally landed in Los Angeles under a star-filled sky. The runway lights blinked in the distance as the engines cooled. Black car waited at the end of the staircase, the driver already holding the door open. Keanu turned to her. Where are you staying tonight? Emily hesitated. I haven't figured that out yet. I was going to find a hostel or cheap hotel. Keanu didn't flinch. You're staying at my guest house. She blinked. What? It's safe, quiet, and there's a garden out back where hummingbirds come every morning. Emily couldn't speak for a second. But I can't accept that, she said, heart pounding. Keanu placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You gave me something today, Emily. Your honesty. Your story. Let me return the kindness. She nodded, her eyes wet again. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. They rode together through the city, past glowing billboards and tall buildings. Emily watched the world rush by. A world that had always felt out of reach. Too fast, too expensive, too distant. But now, sitting next to Keanu Reeves, something felt different. It felt like maybe, just maybe, this world had room for her too. When they arrived, the house was warm and quiet, tucked behind a row of trees. The guest house was cozy and simple, with soft lights, clean sheets, and a small note waiting on the bed. It read, You belong here. Rest well. Emily sat on the bed, still in disbelief. Her phone buzzed with a message from her best friend. Did you meet him? Tell me everything, she replied with shaking fingers. I missed the flight, but he found me anyway. As she lay back, on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart was full for the first time in years. She had chased a moment and missed it, only to discover something even better waiting on the other side. A door opens, and so does the past. Emily awoke in the guest house to the sound of birds outside. Soft rays of sunlight streamed through the light curtains, and for a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The missed flight, the private jet, the journal, the hug, the way Keanu Reeves had looked at her like she mattered. She sat up slowly, running her hand along the soft blanket. On the nightstand beside her was a small wooden tray with breakfast, a muffin, fruit, and a handwritten note. Breakfast is fuel for courage. Kay, her eyes watered again, not from sadness but from something far rarer, being seen. She stepped outside after getting dressed, walking through the small garden Keanu had mentioned. He hadn't exaggerated. Hummingbirds danced near the flowers, their wings a blur of color and magic. The air smelled like morning dew and rosemary. She spotted him on the far side of the garden, sitting with a mug of coffee and a guitar on his lap. He strummed lightly, his hair still messy from sleep, his expression calm. He looked up and smiled. Sleep okay? Like a rock, she replied. Good, he nodded. You ready for part 2 of your journey? She raised a brow. There's a part two? He grinned. You'll see. The black car picked them up an hour later, this time with Emily wearing one of Keanu's spare jackets. It was a little big on her, but warm and smelled faintly of cedar wood and something like safety. As they drove through the city, Keanu explained, "A friend of mine runs a center for youth struggling with mental health, writing, art, music, it's all used for healing there. I told him about you, about your journal. He'd like to meet you." Emily froze. Me? But I'm not just anything. He cut in gently. You survived. And you wrote. People need to hear from someone like you. Her hands fidgeted. I'm not a speaker. I'm not strong like you. He looked at her with a softness that almost hurt. Strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when you don't want to. Sometimes it looks like a girl holding a pen instead of giving up. She nodded slowly, not quite believing, but wanting to. The center sat on a quiet hilltop. The sign out, front red, shelter and spark. Inside, the walls were painted with murals made by teens. Dragons, galaxies, broken hearts stitched together with stars. It was a place full of pain, but also full of hope. Emily felt her heart race as they walked. Through the main hallway, a group of kids sat in a circle in one of the rooms, painting silently. A girl with short green hair noticed them and whispered something. Heads turned. Whispers rose. Then a boy with a camera phone called out, "Is that Keanu Reeves?" Keanu smiled and waved, "Just visiting a friend." The director came out, an older woman with silver braids and clear, kind eyes. "Keanu," she said warmly, hugging him. Then she turned to Emily. "And this must be the writer you told me about." Emily blushed. I don't know if I'd call myself that yet." "You write with truth," the woman said. "That's all that matters." The afternoon passed in moments too fast and too meaningful. Emily was introduced to a small group of girls who had also been through heavy storms, bullying, grief, self-harm, anxiety. She read them 2 entries from her journal, hands trembling the whole time. One girl started crying halfway through. Afterward, that same girl hugged her and whispered, "You sound like me, exactly like me." Emily didn't know what to say, but in that moment she realized something. Maybe pain doesn't lose its weight with time, it just shifts. And maybe the only way we lighten it is by sharing it. Keanu watched from the back of the room, quiet, eyes full of something deeper than pride. On the ride home, Emily finally asked the question that had been sitting in her mind since the airport. "Why did you really come back for me?" Keanu didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, thoughtful. Then he said, "Because I know what it's like to feel like nobody's coming." His voice dropped to a whisper. "When my sister was sick, I watched her waste away for months. There were days I couldn't speak, days I wanted to disappear. But one night a stranger brought us soup. She said nothing, just left it with a small note. 'You are not alone.'" He paused. That small kindness held me together. Emily stared at him. "So you've been carrying it forward ever since?" He nodded. "I try to." That evening, back at the guest house, Emily found a package waiting by the door. Inside was a beautiful fountain pen and a fresh leather-bound journal. A small note read, "Your next chapter begins now. Keep writing." She sat at the desk and stared at the blank first page. Then she opened the pen and began. "Dear reader," she wrote, "I don't know where this road leads, but I know it started the day I missed a flight and found something better. A chance to believe again." She paused, thinking about the girl she once was. Then she added, "And if you're reading this, maybe you've missed something too. Maybe this is your sign that something better is coming." The words flowed out of her like water, and outside, in the quiet of the night, Keanu Reeves walked the garden path under the stars, feeling that same peace return. He had once said fame wasn't the reward, this right here was. The surprise invitation and the storm inside. The morning after her visit to the youth center, Emily sat on the garden bench, sunlight brushing across her face as she sipped warm tea. She felt different, not in a grand, dramatic way, but in small, quiet shifts, like something heavy inside her had moved, like there was space now, space to breathe, to grow. Keanu joined her, holding a plate with 2 slices of toast and a goofy grin. They say breakfast is the most important meal. I say, it's the best time for a strange question, she laughed. Okay, hit me. How would you feel about attending an event tonight? It's a charity gala. Nothing fancy, just people trying to do good. You don't have to give a speech. Just show up. Emily hesitated. Her old instincts kicked in. Say no, stay small. Don't stand out. I don't belong at a place like that, she said quietly. Keanu didn't press. He just looked at her and said, You belong wherever truth is welcome. That stayed with her. Hours later, she stood in front of the mirror, inside the guest house, trying on the dress Keanu's assistant had dropped off. It was soft blue, not too flashy but elegant in a way that made her posture straighten. She barely recognized herself. A knock came. She opened the door, and there stood Keanu, dressed in a dark suit and tie, hair neatly combed, but with the same kind eyes as always. You look great, he said with a quiet smile. You too, she replied, then chuckled. This is really happening, huh? He offered his arm. Let's go change the world. The gala hall shimmered with golden lights and gentle music. Tables lined with silverware and candles filled the room. People in fine clothes laughed politely, shook hands and posed for pictures. Emily felt the weight of it, the shine, the expectations. She walked close to Keanu, her fingers clutching her small purse like a lifeline. A few heads turned. Some whispered, Is that Keanu Reeves? Who's the girl with him? Keanu introduced her to several people, filmmakers, authors, philanthropists, but always made sure she felt comfortable. He never let the conversation drift away from her. He made her feel seen. When they sat down at their table, a woman across from them leaned forward with a smile too wide. Keanu, it's so good to see you again. And who is this? Your niece? Emily's heart stung at the tone. Patronizing, dismissive. Keanu didn't blink. This is Emily, he said. She's a writer and a survivor. The woman blinked. Oh. Keanu leaned closer to Emily. Don't let their gowns fool you. Courage doesn't wear diamonds. Later that evening, something unexpected happened. The host of the event took the stage and began speaking. Tonight we celebrate those who give, those who share, those who fight battles in silence and still find ways to shine. Emily smiled politely, clapping with the crowd. Then the speaker said, We're honored to recognize a new voice, someone who reminds us that resilience isn't loud, but it's powerful. Emily Thorne, please join us. Her heart dropped. Keanu leaned in and whispered, I didn't plan. They read your journal. They asked to honor you. Her hands shook. I can't. You can, he said gently. Just breathe. Walk. Be you. The crowd clapped as she stood. She took one step, then another, then another. When she reached the stage, her mouth felt dry. The lights were hot, the room blurred, but she found the microphone. Hi, she said softly. I'm Emily. A few polite laughs. A few months ago, I was invisible. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. And then one day I saw a man help someone in the rain. He didn't know anyone was watching, but I was. And that small act changed something in me. She paused. We don't know who we're saving when we choose kindness. We don't know whose story we help rewrite by simply showing up. The room was silent now. So thank you. Not just for this honor, but for seeing people like me. For making room. She stepped back, heart pounding. A single person stood and clapped. Then another. Then the whole room. She returned to her seat shaking. Keanu whispered, You did it. She exhaled. I don't know how. You just told the truth. That's always enough. After the event, As they waited by the car, Emily checked her phone. Her inbox, usually empty, was suddenly full. Messages from people who had watched her speech, people who felt seen, people who said, "Your words made me stop and think." She showed Keanu one message. "From a girl named Jade, I was going to give up tonight. Then I saw your clip. You saved me. I don't even know you. But you saved me." Emily stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. "I'm just a simple woman," she whispered. Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder. "So was my mother. And she raised a man who now owns an airline." As the car pulled up to the guest house, Keanu turned to her. "There's something else I haven't told you." Emily looked up. "What?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small document, an invitation with gold lettering. "You've been invited to speak at the United Voices conference in New York next month. They read your journal. They want you to share your story." Emily's jaw dropped. "But I've never even been on a stage before tonight." He smiled. "And tonight you stood on one and changed lives." "But why?" "Me?" Keanu's voice was calm. "Because you're proof that sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the loudest light." Emily didn't know what to say. But deep inside her, something bloomed. Not fear, not doubt, but purpose. Voices, fears, and a flight of truth. Emily stared at the invitation on her lap the next morning. It sat beside her coffee cup like a challenge she wasn't sure she could face. United Voices Conference. Guest speaker, Emily Thorne. 1,000 thoughts swirled in her mind. What if she froze? What if she said the wrong thing? What if people laughed? The fear was real, deep, loud. Yet so was the memory of Jade's message. "You saved me. I don't even know you. But you saved me." The phone buzzed. A text from Keanu. "Garden. Now. Bring your nerves." She smiled weakly and stepped outside. He was sitting cross-legged in the grass, shoeless, with 2 mugs of tea steaming beside him. "Good morning. Speaker of truth," he said casually. "Good morning, man who drops emotional grenades," she replied. He laughed, handing her the tea. "So, are we going to New York?" She bit her lip. "I don't know. I want to. But I'm scared." "Good," he said. She blinked. "Good?" He nodded. Fear means you care. People who don't feel fear usually don't care about the impact of their words. You do. That's your strength. She looked down at her tea. "What if I fail?" "What if you fly?" His words hung in the air like music. 3 days later, they were back on the jet. This time, Emily wasn't just a quiet passenger. She was the purpose of the trip. She wore a soft cream blouse and loose jeans, hair pulled into a braid, hands wrapped around her new journal. Keanu noticed her silence as the clouds rolled beneath them. "Want to talk about it?" he asked. "I keep wondering why me," she admitted. "Why not someone stronger, louder, more experienced?" He nodded. "Do you know why I make movies, Emily?" "Why?" "Because when I was a teenager, I stuttered so badly I couldn't finish a sentence. I failed drama class. But one teacher believed in me. Just one. He said, 'Your silence is stronger than most people's shouting,' and that stayed with me." She looked at him, stunned. "You?" she whispered. "You had a stutter?" "Still do sometimes," he said with a small smile. "Everyone's carrying something. We all just learn how to dance with it." Emily leaned her head back, watching the ceiling of the plane. "What if I freeze on stage?" "Then freeze," he said. "Breathe and speak anyway, because no one expects perfection. They expect honesty." New York buzzed with energy when they landed. Cars, lights, people, everything moved faster here. Emily's legs trembled as she stepped off the jet, but Keanu stayed beside her, grounding her. They were greeted by the conference director, a woman named Sharon. Bold eyes, confident voice, and a warmth that instantly calmed Emily. "We're honored to have you, Emily," Sharon said. "We've read your words. The world needs more of them." The hotel suite was beautiful, but Emily barely noticed. All she could see was the speech in her notebook. Words scribbled, crossed out, rewritten again and again. She sat on the floor, That night, papers scattered around her, heart thudding. Keanu entered quietly and sat beside her. "Want to run it with me?" She shook her head. "I don't think I can." He waited a moment, then said, "Do you trust me?" She nodded. He stood and gently pulled her up. "Close your eyes." She did. "Now pretend you're back in the garden. The hummingbirds are nearby. The air smells like rosemary. No crowd, no pressure, just truth." He placed the notebook in her hand. "Read it. To yourself. For yourself." She opened it, breathed, and began. The words flowed like a river finally released. Her voice wobbled, broke, steadied. She read about pain, about healing, about kindness in the rain. When she finished, Keanu had tears in his eyes. "That," he whispered, "will reach people." The next day, the conference hall swelled with hundreds of people. Lights hung from the ceiling. Cameras flashed. The stage felt miles long. Emily stood backstage, staring at the curtain. "You don't have to do this," Keanu said beside her. "But if you do, I'll be right there, front row." She looked at him, her fear still roaring inside. But so was something else. All the nights she almost gave up, all the mornings she didn't, all the strangers who might need to hear what she was about to say. "I'm ready," she said. She walked onto the stage slowly. The crowd faded into shadow, the lights warming her skin. Her breath caught. But she remembered the garden, the rosemary, the hummingbirds, and Keanu's words, "Just speak anyway." "Hi," she began, her voice soft but steady. "My name is Emily, and I used to think no one would ever hear my voice." The room fell silent. "I thought my story wasn't loud enough, not dramatic enough, not important." She paused. "But then I learned something. People don't need perfect stories, they need real ones." She opened her journal. "This is one of mine." She read about the day she nearly ended everything, about seeing kindness when she needed it most, about how a stranger in the rain helped her believe in the world again. When she finished, a deep silence followed. Then a single person clapped. Then two. Then the room erupted. Standing ovation, tears, shouts of, "Thank you." Emily stood there, overwhelmed, and, from the front row, Keanu Reeves stood with his hand over his heart. Later, backstage, Emily collapsed into a chair, shaking. Keanu rushed to her, hugging her gently. "You did it." She looked up, tears streaming. "I think I finally found my voice." He smiled. "No, Emily, you didn't find it. You unlocked it." The messages poured in, emails, calls, requests to speak again, to write a book, to lead workshops. A publisher offered to print her journal. A school invited her to teach resilience to kids. Emily sat in her hotel room that night, the city glowing outside the window. Her voice wasn't quiet anymore, and the world was finally listening. The voice that changed everything. A week after the conference, Emily stood on the edge of a quiet hill in Los Angeles, barefoot in the guest house. Garden. It was early morning. The air was soft and the sun hadn't risen yet, but she was wide awake. She was holding a letter in her hand. One written by a girl named Mia, just 15 years old, from a small town she'd never heard of. "You said you thought your story wasn't important," Mia had written. "But it saved me. I'm still here because of you." Emily pressed the letter to her heart. This wasn't about fame. It never had been. It was about showing up, telling the truth, and letting the light in. Inside the house, Keanu sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea and watching the morning news. Emily walked in, barefoot, the hem of her pajamas brushing the floor. "You're up early," he said with a soft smile. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Too many thoughts, too many letters, too many emotions." He nodded, understanding, instantly. That's the beautiful curse of healing. It wakes you up. She sat down across from him, placing Mia's letter on the table. "I want to do more," she said. I don't want this to be just a moment. I want it to grow. I want to help more people like Mia, like me. Keanu's eyes lit up. Then let's build something. 3 months later, the first seed of that idea became real. They called it the Voice Project, a foundation dedicated to helping people who felt unheard, especially youth, especially survivors, especially the ones who were told their stories were too small to matter. The project offered free workshops in schools, hosted story-sharing events, and helped publish journals from those who had never seen their words in print. Emily became its voice, its heart, and its most honest example. Keanu stood beside her, supporting quietly, never trying to lead it, only amplify it. Reporters asked, "Why her?" And he always replied, "Because she never asked for attention. She just wanted to say thank you." And in doing that, she saved lives. 1 year later, Emily found herself back at the airport. Same gate, same suitcase, same cold bench near the window. But this time, she wasn't alone. She sat beside a nervous young woman who looked like she was trying not to cry. Emily smiled gently. "First time flying?" The girl nodded. "Where to?" "Los Angeles. I'm supposed to speak at a youth center, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a writer, just me." Emily's smile grew warmer. "You're not just anything," she said. "You're exactly who you're meant to be." The girl blinked. "Have we met before?" "Maybe in spirit," Emily said, handing her a small, folded note. The girl opened it. It read, "You belong here. Speak your truth. Someone out there is waiting to be saved by your words." Outside, at that very moment, Keanu Reeves stood beside the private jet, talking to the pilot. He looked toward the glass windows of the terminal and saw Emily smiling, talking, comforting a stranger. He didn't need cameras. He didn't need awards. This was it. This was the moment that mattered. Emily walked out a few minutes later, suitcase in hand. Keanu held the door of the jet open. "Ready?" he asked. "Always," she said. As they climbed into the sky, she pulled out her latest journal and began writing. "Dear stranger, if you're reading this and you're still doubting your voice, please remember, someone like you once thought their story didn't matter, and then everything changed. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be famous. You just have to speak. And the right hearts will hear you." From missed flight to worldwide movement, Emily's journey didn't begin with a speech or a spotlight or applause. It began with a woman who refused to give up, and a man who believed in quiet voices more than loud noise. And together, they proved. Sometimes the world doesn't need heroes. It just needs someone brave enough to be real.